Hello and welcome to the Wisconsin United Football Club podcast. That's a lot to say. But guys, I'm excited to introduce myself. I'm Monte Reyment. I am the host and facilitator here of the podcast. To the left of me, you're going to see Mike Sprang. He is the president of the program. And Eric Gebhard over there on the left, who is the executive director of the Wisconsin United Football Program. So guys, welcome to the podcast studio here over at Take Action Realty Group. Thanks for popping on.
Thank you, Monty.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, and thanks for having me host this. As Eric and I know each other, we go back 20 years, and I'm a huge sports fan. So I don't have a soccer background. I don't have, that sort of thing, but I worked in recruiting. I helped student athletes go to college to play soccer. So this kind of stuff really gets me going. So I appreciate you guys asking me to do this.
Great.
Let's get into it a little bit here. So let's start with you, Mike. What's your background? Who are you? Give everybody a little insight on the guy behind the mic there.
Yeah, so Mike Sprang, I'm the club president. So I became the president 5 years ago. I have a son of the program, and initially I just I was just a board member. So as the clubs came together and I started learning more about the club, Wisconsin United, and wanted to take the club to the next level. I saw the potential of what the club had and what the infrastructure was. And my background in a professional space, I lead a global supply chain group, and I'm a lead negotiator for an organization. So setting strategy and setting development is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that's what the club needed to take it to the next level. So I'm super excited about where the club is and where we're taking it for the future.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching you guys from the outside, watching the growth of the program, and we'll get into a little bit of that here in a second.
Eric Gebhard, longtime player, coach. I was working with the Pure Select for almost 2 decades and then transferred to Howard as a coaching director and coached college and club and my younger brothers growing up and played competitively at a high school and semi-professional level. So
awesome. Very cool. All right. So take us back to day one, guys. Whose idea was it to start the program and why?
So 8 years ago, I had just left the Pure Select. I was kind of maxed out over there, and Derek and Dusty had their family role with that organization, and I went to Howard. And we were watching smaller clubs struggle like us, and it became clear to us that if we didn't make some sort of change in the format, that we were going to dry on the vine. We were watching for-profit clubs come into the city, some kids kind of grabbing at the latest and shiny things, and we were faced with this question: how is our nonprofit club going to survive in this environment? Also, on that note, our populations of our communities as soccer players was pretty small. We had great players. We were competitive with Milwaukee and Minneapolis, and we had kids that were fleeing the city to go to Milwaukee for larger aspirations, namely college positions and a college promotion for their playing career. So we could see the pieces in the 3 different clubs, which eventually came together, which was United Hurricanes, at Howard Hurricanes, to Pure Select, and Appleton Soccer Club. Appleton Soccer Club had just signed an endorsement deal with the Minnesota Loons. That kind of happened as Derek and I were talking about, hey, we really need to work together rather than just kind of keep competing in a small environment. And so I'd known Shant from playing against him. He was part of the group in Madison. So I recognized his picture when they signed the deal with Loons, and I thought, well, I'll give Shant a call. And that was kind of the population that we needed is to be successful. Green Bay kids needed Appleton kids, and Appleton kids needed Green Bay kids. And that's how you got to a population where you could be competitive with the larger systems.
Similar to like when a small high school joins another high school in sports. They need the numbers in order to, compete at a higher level. Yeah.
So getting back to the table, which was Derek, myself, and his boards, Shant, Mestian, and these were the original calls. The original meeting was between Howard and Appleton. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm very familiar with the DePere group, and we need that club and that territory and the things that they have going with their indoor facility there. So how could we all work together? Knowing that Shant had just signed with Minnesota Loons, the initial meetings were somewhat tenuous. We were all kind of nervous of, what am I going to give up? What am I going to get? So we turned over the mediation part. We said, okay, we're going to work through this, but anytime we get into a stalemate, we're going to just turn that over to the loons and let them mediate it. And we never really got into a stalemate. We just thought, okay, we made this commitment to the talks, which is what we're doing right now really isn't that good. And we're going to make decisions in the best interest of the players. And if we do that, then everything should work out. And here we are 8 years later. So.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that brings up an interesting thing too. At what point did you decide to become nonprofit? Or was that the goal all along?
We've always been nonprofit. I think it's the best way to operate. We do see for-profit clubs, and there's nothing wrong with that. We are faced with private equity bringing money to the table, but we just feel like nonprofit is the most honest way to be accountable to our communities, and also I just feel like it builds a better product.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in theory, a nonprofit's supposed to work for the people that are benefiting from the program, right? So as long as it's run that way, there's accountability, and the funds are allocated back towards the program, then it works right. And nice.
Yeah.
From experience and watching how nonprofits are supposed to work versus how they don't work sometimes. But you guys doing a great job. Obviously, you continue to pump money into the program, and you guys are growing hand and foot. So this kind of shifts gears a little bit over to you, Mike. I mean, who are the people behind the scenes that are growing this program? Because there's a lot of people. I've already met a few. It's not just you and Eric running this thing. There's a whole handful, a ton of people.
Yeah, we have, from a board perspective, we have a very committed and engaged executive committee. So we have 2 vice presidents that help support me and the group, and then we have a secretary and a treasurer from an executive committee. We meet every 2 weeks. It's definitely a working board. And then we have our general board, and we have members across our entire community that are engaged in the community and really support the initiative and Wisconsin United as a whole. And our board in general is really supportive of everything we do. But then we have Eric and his staff, between Eric and Dusty and Shant and that group, from a director of coaching perspective, putting together the programs and the initiatives that we have to continue to grow. And then the rest of the coaching staff, in Brian Kamler from a technical director perspective, Ann Bona from a tournament perspective, running all of our tournaments, does a fantastic job bringing in skill levels from across from North America. We have teams coming from Canada now for our tournaments, and just pulling in that entire network. It's definitely a all hands on deck type scenario.
Yeah. So switching gears into the mission, core values, I know there's something you guys wanted to talk about, heading into this, and I think it's important for the first episode to really encompass what Wisconsin United is all about. So let's, maybe in one sentence, what's the mission, or I guess we won't even have to do one sentence, let's go on it, but what's the mission, vision for Wisconsin United?
Yeah. So from a vision perspective, right, it's about developing holistic athletes, right? The game of soccer for us is a way to help facilitate that. And it's about building a really strong foundation for our athletes. We understand not everybody's going to go on to play college soccer. They're not going to go on to be a professional, but they're all going to have a career after soccer. They're all going to have a career after Wisconsin United. And how do we lay that foundation, right? We're a brick in their foundation, and that's what our goal is. It's, through competition, through the adversity, we're giving them the tools to help be successful in life.
Yep. And I think all youth sports should really encapsulate that into a student, because again, you have your superstars, but at the end of the day, we know that very few get to the highest of high levels, and you want to certainly support those kids, and those kids are going to come through, but that's talent, work ethic, some luck, connections, relationships. Like, it needs to all come together for somebody to get to that highest level. But on the very foundational, basic level of youth sports, you can develop character, you can develop, commitment. The one thing I always used to talk about is the coachability of student athletes when I was working in my previous field, and, coachable student athletes become productive employees, right? And the ones that don't generally are either entrepreneurs or they're not having very good jobs. So those are really, I think that's the thing I love about your program, is it's always been rooted into the foundation of what you guys are preaching, which is great.
I used to think of, okay, how do you explain what we're trying to do in the most simplest forms? And I saw the quote by this gentleman from Portland. He was very famous in Portland soccer. His name's Clive Charles. And it's just the most eloquent way to simply describe what we do, which is through the game of soccer, we have an opportunity to teach young people about challenges they may face in life. And we'll get into our mission, our core values. And that really summarizes everything we're trying to do is, okay, what is the lesson here? And sometimes we're teaching, the easiest way isn't always the right way. A lot of times your gain is going to come from the discipline and the hard work that you put in. And those are going to be the kids that end up going on past the program and living bigger lives, getting bigger jobs, living a more fulfilling career in life.
Yep. Well, and the failures are just learning lessons, right? Like, I never consider anything a failure if you learn something from it. It sucks, but still learned.
Absolutely. Agree.
So that's a good thing. All right. So let's talk about your mission.
Yeah. So, the mission, that's really what the mission is. It's beyond the game of soccer. It's a mission to promote soccer in the areas we serve. Mission to support our teams and our players and our families. And to really just from inception through the end of their career is to give them a pathway that will help them achieve their soccer goals, right? So whether if they want to go play on a college and they want to become a pro, we're going to have a pathway for that. If they want to be in just a part of a team and part of something bigger than themselves, we'll provide a pathway for that as well. So it's that the mission of the organization is to prioritize our players and put personalized attention on their goals and objectives.
Yeah, I love it. Good. And getting into core values. Any organization has mission, vision, core values. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, our core values are really like what we talked about: unity, humility, passion, and respect. Right? Those can be applicable to anything in life. And we apply those to the game and the game of soccer, but from a unity perspective, right? It's coming together as a team, coming together as a unit to perform, building lifelong relationships and building lifelong memories for what they're going to have on the pitch. And humility, passion, respect, those speak for themselves, right? That's those are not negotiable.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about this because it's easy to say these words and have these behaviors come out. But give me a couple of examples, or maybe one example that you guys have been tested on this.
Almost every time, it's a player that. Almost every time there's a player that excels who might not have the best character.
Yeah.
We've never parted ways with somebody and felt like, oh, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
They leave. I've had that recently just in business, but where, somebody left that I didn't chase and our business got better because of it. It's weird how that works.
So you have the kids, you have to buy in with the kids, right? That's the whole reason you guys are doing this. But you have coaches, you have parents. And that the second one is probably the hardest one to control out of all of this. So, for those that are watching this, I would assume there's going to mostly be parents watching this. I can't see many of the kids tuning into the Wisconsin United. I'd be tuned out of podcast, but a couple of beats coming in here. But how do you portray these mission values, core values, mission statement really into parents? Because I think from being in my background of college recruiting and I've seen way more parents ruin scholarships for student athletes than the student athletes lost them themselves, unless it was a trickle down of the behaviors that their parents were exhibiting. So really, what's the buy-in for those parents out there that are watching this and the expectation maybe? Let's lay that out.
Well, so 99% of parents are great, and those are the ones that you don't remember. And then I feel like the 1% really want to help. And maybe take it just a little bit too far. So they need reminders. So we try to do the mission and vision published everywhere we go. We have policies on our website. We're adopting the Sideline Project, which is, a self-reflection quiz for parents to take, what proper sideline etiquette is.
I know we're going to talk about that on a future episode as well.
Yeah. So I think everybody has good intentions, and then somewhere like somebody wants to help affect the outcome so bad that it goes across the line. And I think during those times, it's good to take reflection and not get accusatory or defensive about it and just say, this is what we're trying to do. So it's constant education. We just went to a big event with a group of 6 teams and we had a parent meeting before every game. And, when we're on a national stage, we wear however you behave. That's our reputation now. So I think when you have those talks and you're front of mind about it, because what happens is you do that and then everything's going well and you might skip it one year.
All right.
And it will show up. So it's just part of training and reflecting and enforcing a standard of expectations, and everybody's really been great about it. So I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, just to add on to that a little bit, one thing that we're really focused on and we're working on developing is, whether it's in the club or in business, right? Communication is always the barrier to being successful. So we're working really hard to have the communication with our players and parents so they understand that our goal and intention, like I said, is to develop every player to the best of their ability. And that does include the parents, right? Because the parents have to be there to support before the game, during the game, and after game, and especially on the ride home. So I think as a parent, I mean, I can tell you, I've violated my own rule where, we have to be supportive in all aspects, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that's really important. And as Eric said, the 1% are the ones that we are trying to communicate to, so we can make sure that they understand the message.
Yeah. And you got to bring it in too. It's like, you can't, just because the parent lashes out, they're still human beings. You don't know what happened that day. If another family member of theirs is sick, or, they lost their job, or what, you don't know why they're acting that way. So I think that's always a good thing. Now, if it's consistently happening, that's a different story. But
there was a stat that came out last year that it really stopped me in my tracks, was that 35% of the referees that were in the pool that year, we were going to experience them for their first game.
Yeah.
So reminding parents that those are kids too. And that, maybe he didn't get it, but we, as a team, we made a lot more mistakes than that referee did. So let's control what we can control. So
yeah. Now, what's the difference between, say, Wisconsin United and other soccer programs that are out there?
Well, we are a competitive club. I think that's it. So we aim to provide an experience where players can come in at all levels, recreational, developmental, and then at somebody who's pursuing a collegiate or professional career. And we aim to be the club in northeastern Wisconsin that you don't outgrow. So in other words, we're friendly with all of our local competitors, and they provide a very good product at the developmental level. But if you want to get a reasonable regional platform where you get college recruiting and that sort of thing, we aim to be that club that you're not going to outgrow without commuting along.
So I'm assuming there's tryouts for teams, especially later on.
Yes, we have tryouts in June, early June, so that'll be coming up. And then we also have ID events, which ID events for us initially started because for the high school boys, they try out in June, but a lot of times their season doesn't start till the following spring, so it's hard to coax them into coming out to try out. So we always have ID days right after the high school boys season. And we also do ID days as a way of having an open house, get you people from outside to interact with the coaching staff and
for sure
experience our facilities.
Love it. Cool. Anything you want to add to that?
No, well crushed it. Yeah,
good job.
Elder. Good job.
All right. So getting into the political landscape, a little bit of, there always is in sports, right? You can't avoid politics, unfortunately, as much as we'd all like to, and we like to limit that. But you guys have some other things too. You guys are using public facilities and, trying to get some private facilities and other things going, but you have a little mix of both that you guys work on. So what's the scenario like? People don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes when it comes to even just getting a place booked.
Yeah. So we do our best to return, being a nonprofit, return capital back to the training environment. And, it is a mission of ours to enhance the sporting infrastructure in northeastern Wisconsin. We just completed a project in Howard. We're trying to do some stuff in De Pere. We are doing some equipment in De Pere, and then we're trying to help them with a parking lot and a pathway, and then maybe some bigger stuff. So yeah, our sporting infrastructure is quite a bit behind some of the bigger metro areas, but I think it's catching up, and I think we're well poised to invest in that. So we've had some great municipal partners, the city of Appleton, the city of De Pere, and the village of Howard. And when we can take some money off of our bottom line, combine that with a grant and maybe some in-kind work, we can volumize that capital and do some really good things in all three communities.
Yeah, I love it. You're creating win-wins out of the whole scenario versus, in a fight between the municipality and the programs. And it's a good symbiotic relationship, which seems to make sense. And I think for outsiders that are taxpayers, that's, you guys are using this park, you aren't paying anything. Well, you're putting money back into it, which is important.
Yeah, and the other part of that too is we use the facilities and a lot of the parks for our tournaments and other events. So we're bringing in tourism dollars, right? It's a big economic engine for what we're bringing in.
And I know I've benefited from it, from having Airbnbs in the area, right?
Yeah. So everybody, we have, like I said, we have for our tournaments, we're using a lot of our parks, and I mean, we have new tournaments out at the fields at Howard. We're using the fields in De Pere, and then obviously USC Youth in Appleton. And like I said, we have teams coming in from North America, Canada, and across the U.S. So they all need places to stay, they need beds to sleep in, and they need restaurants to eat at.
Exactly.
It's a major economic impact.
Yeah, 100%. So is there any complication in the relationship between the municipalities and what you guys are doing, or is it you guys have that pretty much hammered out now?
It's different everywhere. I think it's always getting better. Probably the most difficult thing is the tribalism between communities. In a bigger city, you would commute 45 minutes to work, no problem. When you tell Green Bay people that they might have to drive to Appleton, or Appleton people, I don't know why there's the Great Wall of China exists between them mentally. So, but the city leaders have all been great. Marty Krasabaki at the city of De Pere, the Jeff Farr, the engineer in Howard, and we just recently met with the mayor of Appleton and Tom Flick, the parks. Well, he's the deputy parks director, but he'll probably get a promotion soon. So, we're just looking at a way where we can have that return on capital to our community, and really what it is making the player environment better. So recently we have added 2 turf fields to the northeastern Wisconsin, and what that's done is we already have 3 weekends of play in the spring. So if you think about that, what that means, when we host games in March, we're hosting 6 clubs from another community on Saturday and 6 clubs on Sunday. That means about 96 families will make the drive from Chicago, Minneapolis, Indy, or one of those. If you think about what that means to the hotel infrastructure in northeastern Wisconsin during March and April when the Packers don't play, that's pretty dramatic change.
Yeah, I know those are my slowest times in my Airbnbs too.
So now you have 100 families coming up from Chicago for a Friday night stay and another 100 on Saturday night. Now, not only that, during this time for the past 7 years, we've been commuting to other communities. So we're also not in town, especially so this has been just great. The turf fields have been up since November 15th, and we've hosted, I want to say 7 or 8 weekends already. We have a tournament next weekend in Howard that at a time when you just wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, and also too, I mean, with the amount of weather we've had, I can imagine the turf fields are going to hold up a lot better than the natural grass fields.
Yeah, we're not on the natural grass right now because it's like pudding, really.
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard to play on that stuff. Very good. So, all right. So let's talk about, the club soccer reputation of expenses, right? Like get into the dollars, the cents. What is the affordability like for somebody that's joining a Wisconsin United soccer program, football program?
We try really hard to keep it at a reasonable experience. So I would say that we're about half of what a comparable level of play is. So when we play Wave and Bavarians out of Milwaukee, they're paying about $5,000. We work really hard to keep that at a level half of that. Then we spread it out into monthly payments.
Sure.
So you think about, you're going to play at an MLS Next level, which is going to give you the notoriety and exposure to get a college promotion. Maybe you're going to be paying about $250 to $300 a month for 9 months. I think it is.
Yeah, and that seems reasonable.
And that's inclusive. That's your coach's fees, your indoor training. We work really hard not to always have our hand out and asking for more money. So,
yeah, I was just going to tie on to that. And from an organization perspective, right, we're trying not to put a massive burden on the families, right? We all know that in the world we live in, there's a lot of additional expenses from a day-to-day perspective. So the way that we establish that, and just getting into that a little bit, is, the club it's large. We have a little over 2,000 players in the program, and we have a lot of expenses that come along with that. So what we do is we try and manage the fees. So the fees only cover about 80% of our total expenses for the year. And there's a lot of additional expenses that come in from that. And Eric and team do a great job working with our local business partners and finding additional sponsorships and working through that so we can maintain that from a feasibility and just an expense perspective.
Yeah. And obviously you have people from all different walks of life, different, financial backgrounds. So for those that, those kids that do have, maybe a single mom or single dad that, works a couple jobs and doesn't have the financial capabilities, are there any scholarships or grants that you guys work in?
Yeah, we have financial aid, and we do a lot with our families that are also on the team for travel. We have host families on that travel. What I told you before was just kind of the top level, like the most expensive level in the club. If you participate in our rec program, you're talking about $80 to $200 for the whole year.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then for the classic level, which is kind of just coming up and kind of flirting with competitive soccer, you're in the $700 range. So if you spread that out over 9 months, you're talking about well under $100 a month.
Yeah, I mean that's less than a gym membership,
and that includes your indoor turf training. You won't find that anywhere else.
No, that's definitely affordability for sure. So. Coaching philosophies across the age groups. You just touched on that a little bit. You got your different levels. You got your elite levels, your MLS next levels, and then you're all the way to the rec levels.
This is a great thing to talk about right now. We've just rolled out our in-house certification program for 12 and under coaches, which is the hardest area to find coaches. So we tend to get we have a director at each location. And then,
where are all your locations?
Howard, Appleton, and De Pere.
Okay.
So we have a kind of a sheriff, basically, who oversees each program, and those coaches are great. And now, what we were finding is like maybe the training was good, but it was inconsistent between campuses. So this off season, we got everything together. We enlisted Nick Bona, who is the De Pere juniors girls director. He trained all the coaches and certified all the coaches. So, for example, if you joined our club right now and you volunteered to coach your 8-year-old team, you have gone through now our in-house certification program, and this is the first year we're doing that. We're really excited that throughout the program, you're going to get the same ideas, and there should be a line of quality and style through all the teams now.
Well, I would assume then that transition up to the next age groups is fluid. It's a lot easier for those kids to transition. The coach conversation, the coach talk is very similar, the same. I would assume you don't want them to all have their own, training. Like you want other input, but I would think in general, you have your structure.
Yeah. And I'm going to be visible here. This was the biggest challenge. It is very easy to coach 15 kids. Now, when you scale up and you get everybody in different facilities, this has been our biggest challenge, and I think we got it right now. So.
Outstanding, good. So the pipeline for a student athlete, we'll call them that, because at the end of the day, that's what they are until they're 19, and they can choose to go to college or not at that point, or maybe they go play professional. But really, they're student athletes along the way. What's realistic for the kids? What kind of let's talk about success rates. I can really get into college recruiting and understand the success rate from a Division I, Division II, Division III. But what are you guys seeing of kids that go through the program that are playing at a higher level? We won't say rec because you're just not going to get recruited at that level unless you're on a high school team and you get lucky, I guess. But what does that look like for a student athlete?
It's a lot different from boys to girls, right? So the boys, it's a smaller number of opportunities, and that's the nicest way I can say that.
That's true.
You're competing with the whole world, and European players tend to be better. And Norwegian players in that whole area, they don't have the educational infrastructure, so their government will fund their players' education. So
interesting.
You have to understand you're competing with a lot of foreign players on the boys' side. And then you have your MLS academies. They have the next pecking order. Some of those guys are falling to D3 now. So it becomes a very competitive environment. Being with a club like us that has a good reputation improves your chances.
Well, the visibility is there, right? Because you're going to some higher level tournaments. In reality, a college coach is probably going to see a student athlete through video first, and then they're going to go to those tournaments to find those kids. But in reality, that's how you get the coaches to those tournaments, is you provide them the information. They're going to look at the resumes, the grades, the character. They're going to take a full entire snapshot, and then you're going to see them at these bigger tournaments. But smaller tournament, probably not, right? Because they want to see as many kids as possible that are on their list at one time.
I think, a good message is what happens after your 4 years, because we see clubs that push too hard and they end up they get the kid and the logo and they have the picture and they get the status update, and that's great. But then by December of their freshman year, they're transferring out, or they have a DUI, or, what is your intention to live a happy life? Or are you just living for the status of the scholarship? And
right.
I think that's a trap.
Well, and that's one of the things I always talked about was finding the right fit, not just because you get recruited, but is that school, does it have any degrees that you're interested in or passionate about? That's number one. Like, don't go to a school just because they have a soccer program. I was a transfer. My school I went there for track. They didn't have what I wanted, so I transferred out. Lo and behold, I never finished anyway. But but the skills that I learned, I will say this, being a student athlete, I learned more being a student athlete in college than I did from any of my professors. So there's a ton of benefit in some of those guys that I did play ball with, whether it was track or football, which I did both. But whether I still have relationships with those guys, I still view them as teammates 25 years later. And that's the biggest benefit I got out of, my 4-year kind of education. So what are the 2 or 3 biggest priorities for you guys right now? We'll start with you, Mike.
For me, the biggest priority is continuing to develop the club culture, right? We talked about, the pathway of the players, and building the environment for the players. And it's for me, it's all about the club culture and maintaining that from an organization perspective and making sure that every player feels included. We go back to the unity, humility, and passion, right? And respect. So making sure that they live that, they understand that, and it's that they're all feeling included in every aspect of the game.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's just the consistency between experiences, and making sure that everybody feels valued going through the program.
For sure.
And, the initiative that we started with Prevea with the injury prevention, we've seen a lot. This time of year, you get, especially female athletes, ages 15 to 18, just overtraining, and the amount of injuries that we've experienced, it's gone down dramatically since we got Michael Lemire from Prevea involved in systematically doing injury prevention. That's a great initiative. So
I would assume those are the things that kind of keep you up at night too, is the well-being of your players is probably number one.
I hold my breath every year from about March 1st to March 30th because, the high school girls season starts March 15th. Everybody tries to get in shape that weekend before the season starts. And that's when we see them all drop. And it's just, this year we went through the FIFA 11 and we got the strength bands out before every training and every game. And it's just really made a huge difference.
Yeah, I love it. So what are you guys most excited for moving forward?
I mean, I just think there's a huge opportunity to support the whole area. We're competitive with clubs, but I think increasing our status as a club can help us support the whole ecosystem of northeastern Wisconsin soccer and then also the facilities.
Yeah. And I think the thing that for you listeners out there or people watching this is Eric's passion from the time I've met him, just as far as soccer goes, is second to none. I don't care what sport. I don't know that I've met many people that have more passion towards, number one, helping the community, but using soccer as an avenue to do that. So kudos to you, Eric, for doing that. I don't know you well enough, Mike, but from knowing Eric as long as I have, it's always been about the program. It's always been about the community. It's always been about soccer. And I think it's admirable that you guys have somebody like that in the community. And I was excited when he came to me to do the podcast. I was like, yeah, I would love to do this just for that sole reason, is because I want to help facilitate. I can see his goals are laid out, and it's really exciting to see, how big and fast and done the right way you guys have really built this out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's really what I'm excited for is as we look to the next, 3, 4, 5 years is looking at, the club's only been around for 8 years, right? So we're talking about 3, 4, 5 years out and the growth that we continue to have. But growth for us may not be the same growth as would be looking for a business, right? We're not looking to be a massive club. Our growth is about the development of our players and back to that core and the culture that we have and having leaders like Eric and Dusty and Shant and Brian and the rest of the group on the team. The sky is really the limit for Wisconsin United and what this club can do.
Yeah, that gets me fired up. So I guess in close for the first episode, what's really, how did people find you? One, that are out there who are passionate about soccer that live in Northeast Wisconsin. How do they find you guys? What's the best way to reach out?
Our website, wiunitedfc.org. And that's simply, if you want to get in touch with us, info@wiunitedfc.org.
Mm-hmm. And when do tryouts, when should somebody, have that? Because you guys are getting really into the season now. We're in mid-April by the time this comes out, probably end of April. So
June 1st every year is generally our tryouts. We'll do some ID days before that.
Okay.
We'll do some ID days after.
Got it. So now is a perfect time, really.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, good. So final thought, what do you want everybody to know that's watching this? Because you're going to have parents watching this. You're going to have people from your club watching it, other soccer enthusiasts. What do you want them to know, right now as this episode ends? What's the biggest thing on your plate?
I think if you want your child in an environment where somebody's going to be maybe just a little bit difficult on them, they're going to face big challenges, and it's a professionally managed program, then we're probably an organization that you want to get involved with.
Love it.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, it's every player, every kid matters in this organization, right? It's not about a player on a team; it's about the team. And as we look at development and growth, it's laying that brick, adding that brick to the foundation, so they're being excited to be successful in their future, whatever that may be, whether it's sports professionally or trade. Our goal is to help provide a pathway for them, whatever that future holds for them.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on as your host. Looking forward to doing a lot more of these. This is right down my alley. And so I'm Monte Reyment. I'm your host of the Wisconsin United Football Club podcast. I got it out right at the end here. And we'll see what happens next time. But I thank you guys for having me on and appreciate what you guys are doing for the community and youth sports in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.